For years I always thought the abbreviation FFS meant Fujifilm Film Simulations, but turns out it actually means something very different. All this time I thought Chris just wanted to talk to me about color profiles. He's actually been pretty annoyed with me.
Welcome back, Deep Review TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols here. And Jordan and I were having a little bit of a conversation about, a lot of the Fujifilm film simulation modes that we like, what we like to shoot, what we don't like to shoot. And what I thought we'd do is tell you our top 5 Fujifilm film simulation modes that we prefer. Spoiler alert, right off the top, there won't be any classic chrome. I think that one's gross. No Astia. Astia is boring. Astia is for taking pictures of eggs under soft window light. But we're going to tell you our top 5 because I feel like color modes are sort of this unsung feature on a lot of cameras regardless of brand, People see them and they don't really use them. They think, oh, I'm gonna shoot raw, and I'm gonna tweak it and make it look the way I want it to look. And that's totally valid. I mean, I totally get it. But simulation modes can actually be fun, and I think the reason why Fujifilm does so well is because they name them after classic film stock, right? Other brands like Muted, Natural, Vivid, that's boring, but Acros and Velvia and Astia, it's sexy. So we're gonna talk about our Fujifilm simulation modes. I like how I can pre-visualize a shot, look at it right through the viewfinder using the simulation mode, and it can actually make photography more fun and enhance the creative process. So let's get to our top 5 right now. All right, so let's start things off with number 5 on my list of my film simulation modes. It's gonna be nostalgic neg. Now, unfortunately, I have the X-T3 today, so I can't shoot any samples for you, but I did shoot this on the GFX 100S, and it is now available as well on the GFX 100. I really did like this film simulation mode because it mimics that sort of classic American film stock from the 70s. I mean, think things like Vericolor, Kodachrome, that kind of stuff. And I kind of grew up reading a lot of books and looking at a lot of those photographs. I would definitely classify it as being somewhat lower contrast, still having very rich saturation, but definitely leaning more to an orange and red palette. Very warm photos. It's a beautiful look, not something that I would use all the time, but it definitely kind of tugs at the nostalgic heartstrings, just like the name suggests. So number 4 on my list of favorite film simulation modes, it's Velvia. This was an incredibly popular slide film among landscape photographers for many years, and it makes sense. I mean, it really does give you contrast and vibrancy with your colors. Very popular for landscape photos. Now, I remember when I first started out as a photographer, I'd crank my saturation way too high, and now I totally scale back on that. But there are still situations where I like to use Velvia. Now, one example is when you're dealing with nice colors, but they're a little bit faded and muted like these are, it can just restore some of that life. It also tends to give you that kind of punchy drama that you might be looking for. In landscape photos, it'll actually take a blue sky like that and add a little bit of magenta. It kind of gives it more of like a deep purple kind of look, and that can be really pleasing in landscape photos. However, on skin tones, it does pump those up as well, and I just don't like the look. So I would say Velvia, I don't use it very often, and certainly not for portraits, but in a classic landscape situation, it's excellent. All right, number 3 on my favorite Fujifilm simulations, I'm actually gonna go to the Fujifilm X100V to talk about classic neg, because this was the first camera that I got to play with classic neg on it. And this is great for any sort of street photography or any sort of edgy work. I mean, this is one of the few film simulations that I like which distorts reality, but not in a gimmicky way. I actually really dig it. And I like it for this kind of street scene where I've got these shadows in the background which have detail, but when you shoot classic neg, the hard tonality really knocks those shadows down. They become very dramatic, and it takes a lot of the saturation away on this color and graffiti and just gives it a really nice vintage look. Now, I feel like this is meant to mimic a lot of like really old film stocks, not Kodak Gold or Fujifilm Superia. That stuff was pretty saturated. We're gonna go back beyond that, or even like old faded film. I just love the kind of aged, rugged look, and again, has a nice appeal when it suits your shot. All right, my number 2 Fujifilm simulation mode is great for pretty much any situation. It's Provia. I love this mode. I mean, this is what Fujifilm called their standard camera mode, but named after the Provia chrome film that was very popular. You'll find the majority of our sample gallery photos shot on Fujifilm cameras are shot in the Provia mode, and that makes sense. I mean, it's a good standard profile, good saturation and contrast without pushing things too far over the edge, but they also have really good skin tones. And although a lot of Fujifilm users are going to shoot raw and tweak skin tones afterwards, if you're shooting color profiles, the Provia is famous not only in the past but today as well.
All right, it's Jordan Drake to talk about my favorite film simulation modes. for video shooters, and there's only one worth talking about, which is Eterna. It is an almost perfect video profile. I love it. I will actually pick up a Fujifilm camera just because I want to shoot Eterna in those situations. Very easy to grade, looks fantastic right out of camera. If I'm in a high contrast scene, sure, I'll use F-Log, but the first thing I do after I shoot something in F-Log is I put an Eterna LUT back on it because I love Eterna.
So what's your favorite mode again?
I like Eterna. It's an E in the dial.
Oh, I see it. All right, we're gonna get to our #1 simulation mode, but before we do that, can I just ask you guys to subscribe? I mean, we teach you about presets. We don't try to sell them to you, and Jordan and I are like an old-timey time magazine. We need subscriptions. That's how we live or die. And you don't have to fill out those cards that fall out of the magazine and put your address. All you have to do is click a button. It's so easy.
No one knows what magazines are.
Okay, so you may have guessed that my #1 favorite simulation mode was a black and white mode. I'd happily shoot it the rest of my life. I want more Leica monochrome cameras to come out so I can review those. I'd be happy to do that. That's all the channel is going to be from now on, right, Jordan?
No,
okay.
Most cameras are color.
Color, great. The fact is I can shoot black and white anywhere. I mean, I love all situations looking at the world in monochrome terms, but what you might not know is that across is actually not what I'm gonna say. My favorite film simulation mode is Fujifilm's monochrome mode. I like across just fine, and Jordan and I talk about across a lot on the channel because we know that's a fan favorite, but I shot my fair share of Fujifilm across film, and of course it depends what speed you shot it at, what you developed it in. You know, I just keep it 100 road and all the way. But you know, I always found it to be a fairly middle of the road film. Nice detail, sharp, but just never blew me away. And I feel like although Fujifilm's done a great job of replicating the look of across in their cameras, I still far prefer the actual monochrome mode. I don't think people use it because it sounds boring. It's not sexy like across. They should have called it neopan. That would have sealed the deal for me and probably a lot of you out there. So if you haven't tried monochrome, give it a shot, and if you love across, that's fine too. All right, everyone. Well, regardless of what brand of camera you own, I hope that this kind of gets you thinking about maybe shooting some of those JPEG color simulation modes. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with them. It's not always about shooting raw and tweaking afterwards. Sometimes you just want to have a nice experience being creative while you're out shooting. Remember, if you shoot JPEG plus raw, you get the best of both worlds. You can tweak things after however you want. But thank you for joining us, guys. Try out your own color modes. Let us know in the comments below if you agree with us or if there's modes that you think are crap, or you know, monochrome is terrible. I know you're gonna say that anyway, so I'm getting ready for that. Otherwise, please do subscribe. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys soon.